indelible image in my mind of Julian Donkey Boy criticizing him for his artsy fartsy poetry.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk about. There's one thing that struck me as pretty interesting in a choice that you made with the film, and it was regarding the actual death tape. And it was the choice not to actually play it for anybody to hear, but instead you relied more on the coroner to explain what was on it, and then your personal reaction while you were listening to it. And from a cinematic standpoint, you can understand why, you might not have wanted people to hear it, because it might have been exploitative. But at the same time, cinematically, you almost made it worse than it possibly, could have been by letting the audience use its imagination to imagine what was on there. I want to talk a little bit about that.
I believe that not using the tape and what you see on film is actually how it happened. I listened to it the only and first time and immediately decided it was so horrifying that we are not going to use it. Jule Perlevec, of course, wouldn't have given it to me either. So it was clear we are not into a snuff movie and we have to respect the privacy and dignity of an individual death. So you don't transgress into that. But sometimes it is better to have a big question than some sort of an answer. Sometimes in cinema it is better to not see exactly what is going to happen. In Hitchcock movies you see it very often. You see the window up there and the murder is happening behind that window. And it is in your fantasy, and to fantasize how it is two human beings being killed and devoured by a grizzly bear is something which is probably in our deepest inherent imaginations anyway. There is a fear of that. There is something primordial in us that makes us imagine. And it's okay. We have to live with it as it is. And I think the moment when Jule looks at my face, it's not my reaction so much. You see Jule's face and the anguish in her face trying to read my face. That is a moment that is probably one of the best moments I ever shot in my life.
I knew that I didn't want anyone to listen to it. I haven't listened to it either. But I know that that it had to be dealt with in the film, and I knew that Werner pretty much had to hear it. And I'm happy with the decision. I'm sorry he had to hear it, but to make it a complete film and to understand why it's not going in there, that's why we had to do it.
Yeah, that was an interesting decision, that the camera wasn't on your face while you were listening to it.
Speaking of
yes, I was.
Yeah.
You see the headsets, and I'm filmed from behind, and you see like a mirror of my face. You see Jule's face and the anguish to try to read what's going on in my mind.
How do you feel about this as a portrait of Timothy?
I think that I think it's great. I think that he really would have liked it. I think that it's not a love letter. It's not, a portrait of a saint. But I think that wouldn't have made it as interesting of a film. I think it wouldn't have given a clearer picture. And I think by doing Werner treating Timothy as he did, as a larger-than-life character, as a rock star, as a really flawed human being, that it's much deeper than I could have hoped for in just having a straight nature documentary.
How did you feel about using this person's, original material, as well as using your own?
I have no problem with that. I loved his footage. I made the best out of it, and I think Treadwell and I complement each other very well. Like Kinski and I complemented each other very well. I mean, the crazed actor, volatile and in hysteria all the time, but in his case, I was able to give him a certain form, to put everything that is his best, and also, of course, with Treadwell, onto a screen to make it productive for a screen. And I think it worked well.
One of the things that's kind of almost interesting about it, if you look at a lot of his footage, it actually looks like it could have been staged and shot because the composition.
Yes,
I mean,
scripted
yeah.
almost. Yes,
I mean,
wonderful.
like,
Yeah.
He's there in the foreground, then you have, then there'll be like two grizzlies, one sort of in the middle ground and in the background. It was like these perfectly composed shots.
He self-taught himself with a video
Yeah.
camera, and he was, like Werner pointed out, he was making a movie of himself, and he had a really good time doing it.
Yeah, and he's apparently scripted in his mind what he was going to say. And sometimes you have a shot where he's moving into camera, but the two grizzly bears in the background are moving out off frame. And he apparently views it and says, oh, I've got to repeat it and I have to move a little bit to the left. And then he looks into the camera and gives his rap. So he was very conscious about composition of images, about content, about what he was saying, what he was doing.
Yeah.
A filmmaker, a true filmmaker, a star larger than life.
Absolutely.
Working on his big movie, and he's got it.
Yeah, he's got it.
He's got it.
He's a rock star.
Do you feel that ultimately the decisions that he was making and sort of the path that he was going was, I guess, conscious, or do you think he just slowly started to just, lose himself from society and just sort of want to really become a part of what he was doing?
I think it was a longer process over many years that he somehow felt more comfortable in the animals' world. He made a clear distinction, the people's world that he hated and hated more and more. But at the same time, he would go back into civilization and teach school children. Half a year he would dedicate to be a great educator. So that side, unfortunately, is not in the film because we have no footage. It gives a full range of the man. It gives a man who, as I said, is larger than life, a man who is haunted by demons, a man who has great exhilarations, who has self-doubt, who is aggrandizing himself. It's a lot of contradictions, and ultimately what the film does, it is not a film on wild nature, it is a film on human nature.
Yeah, he
The human condition.
Yeah, absolutely.
In general, not just Treadwell, it's us,
living in Los Angeles is, or living in any big city is hard and it's confining, especially for someone with such a wild nature as Timothy Treadwell. And I really feel that that he was completely at home and was where he belonged when he was out there with those bears.
I think we've been told that our time is up. Thank you very much.
Okay.